There we go. Okay, so we're pleased to have Mohammad with us, who is joining us live from Ramallah. Mohammad Sabaaneh is a Palestinian cartoonist and former political prisoner in Israel. He is the principal political cartoonist for the Palestinian Authority's daily newspaper, Al Haya Al Jadida, and his work has been exhibited around the world, places as New York, Washington, D.C., Norway, Germany, Qatar, Syria, all around the globe. His first book of collected works is White and Black, and it's just a phenomenal collection of political cartoons that his work is often compared to famous works like Picasso's Guernica and Munch's The Scream. He actually made a lot of those images. He conceived of the images and started the images when he was a political prisoner in Israel, when he was in solitary confinement. When he was being interrogated, he actually stole a pencil when the interrogator left the room with his foot and started drawing those images while he was imprisoned. They're just hauntingly beautiful, and the way they portray truth in all of its complexity. And in the intro to White and Black, Mohammad Sabaaneh, who's another really well-known political cartoonist, writes, "Can there be an accurate depiction of an insane situation?" And I think this is just a great way of looking at all of his work. And I'm just gonna, make sure that folks are being admitted. Yeah, okay, looks like Lauren, you're on top of that. Okay, great. All right, because I'm hearing the da-da-da. Okay. And his second collected work, which I think will be the focus of today, is this one, Power Born of Dreams, My Story is Palestine. And in this one, it's a collection of lino cuts representing Palestine, the beauty and the hardship of the region, of the experience. And we will be raffling off a copy of Power of Dreams today, and also along with some of the postcards that Liz was nice enough to send. And we'll also be purchasing some copies of White and Black. And as I said, I'll be posting some links to how you can get those books as well. All right, I'm gonna turn it over to Mohammad in just a sec and make sure, yes, we have everyone admitted. Okay, great. All right, Mohammad, we are just so thrilled to have you. Thank you so much for being here.
Okay, thank you for this great invitation and for inviting me for this speech. It's been a long time since I gave a speech about my work, actually. Can you see this nation themselves are narrations?
Yes.
Yeah. Actually, I want to start my talk with a small accident happened to me in 2018 while I was traveling back from Jordan after my first tour in the United States for my first book, and I had this sketchbook with me. And like all of the Palestinian people, I was searched by the Israeli officer, my suitcases in that border between Palestine and Jordan. And I had this sketchbook about, it was my first attempt to do a comics story about my life inside the Israeli prison. I saw all the Israeli soldiers when they have found this sketchbook, all the Israeli officer, he called all of his colleagues, they surrounded my suitcases and start just talking in Hebrew. I could not understand exactly what they were talking about. And then they called me to stand between them. One of these Israeli officers asked me, why did you do this illustration? He mentioned the last one, the man surrounded by the Israeli soldier. That's why I looked around me and I told him that because that's exactly what's going on now. All these Israeli soldiers surrounded me just because they have found this small sketchbook, like any artist around the world who carries his sketchbook with him. That took me to my first book, actually, when I published my first book in the United States in 2017 with Just Sport book. And that book was just some cartoons about the Palestinian life, about the situation inside Palestine. The name of that book, White and Black. I've started the idea of this book inside the Israeli prison, while I was in solitary confinement, and I wanted just to spend my time thinking about something, not about think about the prison, about something else, because I thought that this is a good therapy for me inside the Israeli prison. And that book just talking about all the Palestinian life inside Palestine, inside West Bank. And that book, actually, we can consider that as a visual narrative only, without any text, without any narration, just some images talking about the situation inside Palestine. And that book was actually invented also because I was thinking to evaluate my work as a cartoonist, if that work is good or not, and if I have to improve my work, or if I have to create a new style as a Palestinian cartoonist. Started with this Guernica, how I converted this Guernica to talk about the Palestinian situation, and then about the situation in Gaza, this cartoon about the war or the attacks against Gaza, and that one about what's going on around the world, all of these images from my first book, and this one about the Palestinians who were killed by the Israeli. But all of these images, or during all of my tours, I had 2 tours around the United States of America, one in the UK, another one in Ireland, in France. I had this opportunity to meet all these cartoonists and comics artists like Joe Sacco, Seth Tobokman, Ethan, and all of these artists who they are comics artists, and all of what they have done is comics, stories, something with narration, not just images, not just visual narrative. And during these tour, most of the audience in the United States, they were asking about the situation. They need more information, more topics. They don't need just to see these images. Actually, I feel that they need comics to be read by them, not just images represent the situation in Palestine. And that's why I thought maybe I can do comics about my life inside the Israeli prison. Maybe I can do some interviews with some Palestinian people outside the prison to talk about the situation around West Bank and Gaza and 1948 area, Palestinian in diaspora, all these Palestinians around the world. But when I have finished my first book, I've met Liz, and actually she came to Ramallah, and we've met here in Ramallah, and we talk about that. And she told me maybe we can print comics for you. But at that time, I was thinking about how I can get scholarship and go to another country to have chance to improve my work, to improve even my English language, my mentality, try something else. And that's how I got Chevening scholarship to the UK. And I've traveled to the UK, visited out of museum, try something else, not just illustration, comics and cartoon, like sculpturing, do some intaglio print, this artwork for me. Actually, I have done this kind of artwork in the UK. And unfortunately, here in Palestine, we can't do like this kind of art because we don't have workshops. We don't have the chemical material that we have to do to use to produce like this artwork. I try big size of linoleum. I've tried to do something else, not just talking about the Palestinian issues, because I thought during this 1 year in the UK, during my master's degree, I have to maybe try something else, not just keep talking about Palestine. Like this big mural talks about the environment, not about the Palestinian issues. Maybe I include the Palestinian issue or the environment in Palestine and the effects of the occupation on our environment, but the whole mural about the environment. And actually then I had this great thing that happened around the world, not just for me, it's for all the people around the world. I've escaped from Palestine, from this big prison, from the life under occupation, under restriction, under all of this oppression, to the UK to get freedom, to get access to all of these workshops, universities, museums, galleries, But unfortunately, Corona happened in the UK, and that converted all the world as a big prison. And as a Palestinian who has kept from the Palestinian prison, I found another prison, unfortunately. That's what took me back to the one of my visits during my quarantine in the UK and the lockdown. I had lecture with Seth Tobokman in School of Visual Art, and all of his students around the United States, they were in lockdown, they were in quarantine in the UK, in the United States of America. And most of his students actually were complaining because of that lockdown, and that they considered that as a big prison for them. And that's what took me back to my life inside the prison, took me back for my life and the Palestinian life inside that prison. And also, I remember this exhibition for George Hem in Illustration Home in London. That's one of these exhibitions that I have visited in the UK. And he was hired by the Israeli government in 1970 to illustrate some postcards, some posters, some logos for the Israeli government and Israeli companies. And like this illustration about Jerusalem, he has depicted Jerusalem as like an old city, and the Israeli government, the Israeli community bring all of these cars, modernity for this old city. He depicted the Palestinian people as a Bedouin, just a Bedouin without any culture, without any identity. What has provoked me while I was in the UK, because we wasn't like that. The Palestinian had airports, they had universities, they had a newspaper at that time in 1970. But he wanted to use the visual art to create a new narrative about the Palestinian, new narrative about the Israeli occupation. And that's what took me back to this political framework, the settler colonialism. This artwork, I have done that maybe 3 or 4 years ago about the Palestinian people, to compare them with the Native American people. Compare the settler colonialism in the United States with the settler colonialism in Palestine. And that's why I have decided maybe I will do something about the settler colonialism, just to define the difference between the settler colonialism and the occupation, and how I can use the visual art just to explain for the people what the difference between when you mention Israel as an occupation or settler colonialism. Like this old stone wall was stolen by the Israeli people during the period of time where I was in the UK, and that's also remind me with what Ilan Pape have said, that the Israeli or the colonizer can eliminate the people by whipping them from the historical narrative. And also that's this photo remind me how the Israeli wanted to steal our culture, our heritage, our history, to create new identity on the ruins of the Palestinian people and their identities. And also that remind me with what's happened with me at the same year in 1918. While I was in the UK, I have traveled to Netherlands to do an exhibition inside the International Criminal Court. And some Israeli people have stolen my exhibition from ICC, from the International Criminal Court, because they did not need my narration, my narrative to be conveyed by my art. And all of this news about my exhibition inside the International Criminal Court 2 years ago, and also that remind me why the Israeli has arrested me in 2013, because of the same reason. They want to eliminate my narrative, my story, how I can convey the story of my people for the people around the world. And all this news also about some accidents happened with me while I was traveling back also from Belgium in 2018, the Israeli soldier in the border between Jordan and Palestine had confiscated one of my artwork about Palestine. It was also big mural about the Palestinian history. I try to think how I can use a visual art to convey the Palestinian narrative. This small photo from the Congress Library about the Palestinian people before 1948. And I thought maybe I can use this photo as a reference to create coloring book for kids. But I was thinking why I should do coloring book for kids. The kids, they don't think that, they don't have this dialogue that the Palestinian people, they are human being or not human being, they have history or not. Maybe I have to do something for the adults. And that's what took me to comics. Actually, I've remembered what Liz has said to me years ago, or 1 year ago before that, when she had offered that maybe we can print comics for the Palestinian for my work, and that's why I started to think why I do not do comics while I am in the UK, and that will be part from my master degree thesis. I thought that the comics is a good tool because the sequence of the photo, the people want to read something, want to read the narration, not just visual art, and that's why I thought maybe I can do some comics. I had to do some like historical, to read something about the comics history, to read how the people used the comics during the history, during the Second World War, how they have created the heroes during the First World War and the Second World War. And maybe I can create a Palestinian hero. Maybe I should look for something else. But during my historical research about the comics, I have found this great comics actually about the Holocaust. And I've found a lot of books about the Holocaust. They've used the comics as a tool to convey the suffering for the Jewish people during the Second World War. And this one of these comics that have actually provoked me, how I can use the comics at the same direction to create or to convey the Palestinian suffering, and how I can use this kind of art to convey my suffering, and how I don't need to create a hero, Palestinian hero. I don't need to depict Mohammad Sabaaneh as a hero. I wasn't hero inside the prison. I wasn't hero. I'm not hero here in Palestine. I'm just an artist who want to do his daily artwork. He want to, maybe sometime I think maybe I can do something else, not just about the occupation, about our life here inside the Israeli occupation, about our daily basis. I want to do something else about maybe the woman issues, about the environment, about something else. And that's why I thought how I can combine between my biographical story and some stories from around Palestine, in Gaza, in 1948, in Jerusalem, in Palestinian heroes. And that's why I have created this bird. And that's why I have decided to combine between my story inside the Israeli prison with some interviews that I have done before that with some Palestinian outside the prison to make this hybrid comics. When I mean hybrid, when I have mentioned hybrid, because it's fictional story and non-fictional story, is biographical story and non-biographical story, because I've created this bird this bird from the current. He had done a lot of sketches, all these sketches with this bird. And I was thinking, this Palestinian artist who has spent more than 15 years in this siege in Gaza, have done these sketches about the quarantine, about the lockdown in Gaza because of the corona. And he has used this bird as a symbol of freedom. Freedom from what? From coronavirus, from the Israeli occupation, from the political situation in Gaza, from, I don't know. He's my friend, myself, and I've asked him about that. Why did you use this bird? Why this character? He told me, because I don't know. I looked for freedom from all of this restriction, from the occupation, from maybe political situation, from the division between Fatah and Hamas, from all of this situation. And I want freedom. He wanted his freedom. That's why I've decided, because Maysar Warud he's my friend, and I had the same story inside the prison. I want to go back, just talk about that. I had this story inside the prison that the interrogator, the Israeli interrogator, has asked me during the interrogation. He had mentioned something, I don't know why. He told me that you are thinking that you are going to live in that prison, in the Israeli prison, with the heroes, with the Palestinian heroes, with Palestinians who maybe take care of the birds and write some poems about the freedom and the sun. They are criminal. He has mentioned that for me, that the Israeli, or the Palestinian prisoner, they are criminal. But when I was moved from the interrogation center into the Nakab prison, I found the Palestinian prisoner. They were feeding the birds. They were feeding the small birds and teach them how they can fly. And that's why I've decided that I want to use this bird as a hero, as a narrator with me, to convey not just my story, the story of all of the Palestinian people in Palestine. The second thing that I want to convey the story of myself, and that's why I have compared myself or this comics with Joe Sacco comics, because he has used himself maybe as a narrator, but in my story, I'm not the narrator. The bird is the main narrator. The second thing that I was looking for, the location. Maybe you thought that, okay, Mohammed was in that prison, that means he can remember all the details in that prison, but actually I could not remember the details in that prison, because when I was released from that prison, I was really work on to make this therapy for myself, to forget all of the details in that prison. I wanted something to remind me of all these details, how the cell, how the bed, how our life in that prison. That's why I had, or I maybe watched a lot of movies about the Israeli prison, just to remind my mind, or to activate my mind, just think back how I can remember my life in that prison. Even the panels of my pages, all of these pages, you can see this photo for a short film about the Israeli prison, and you can see the bed of the Palestinian prisoner. It's looked like this shape, and I wanted all of my panels in my book, in my comics, to be like this panel, because I thought that all of the Palestinian prisoners' life, it's looked like it's squeezed inside this small panel, inside this small bed, because that bed, that area, it's the only thing that the Palestinian prisoner they had in the Israeli prison. And sometime I wanted to break this panel, to go out that panel, because during my work in that book, I thought these panels for that comics, it's looked like cells, it's looked like prisons. I wanted to get free from these panels, because I'm an artist. I want to go outside the Israeli prison, the Israeli siege, the Israeli restrictions, and even these panels. It's looked like all of these things. I wanted to get some influences from some international artists to use this their art as a reference for our life in that prison, just to convey our suffering in that prison, and to use these famous maybe that way for the cartoons more than the comics artist. But I cannot get rid from my style as a cartoonist. That's why I have tried to get all of these influences from some artists from around the world, like MC Asher. And I wanted also to use some referencings just to convey that all of my images, it's not from my imagination, it's from our life, from our daily life. Like this photo, you can see how the Israeli, they are taking me to the interrogation, and how the Israeli soldier, they are taking these kids to the prison. And sometimes I've used this texture, this texture in most of these photos or most of these panels, because I wanted to convey the same. You can see the sequence here, how the prisoners around the world, they're counting their days, and how I did this zoom out and zoom out to see this texture, how I created this texture. Another thing that maybe during you're reading this book, or if you flip all of these pages, you can see the same scene. Maybe it's not something, it's not very creative for the comics artist, but because our life inside the prison, day by day, it's the same place, the same bed, the same details, the same routine. That's why I've used this technique just to convey that the Palestinian life inside the prison, it's the same, without, there is nothing new. And that's why I've used this idea just to convey that the Palestinian prisoner, they have the same life, the same details for their life inside the Israeli prison. Maybe I can show you this short video about but next, when I finish this presentation. And also I had this question, is biographical or non-biographical story? It's both. It's fictional or non-fictional. It's both, because it's based on my life and some interviews for some Palestinian around the world. It's not something I have created, but at the same time I created this narrator, the bird, as and that's how we can consider this comics as non-fictional. It's image narrative or with narration. Actually, it's both. You can find some splash pages in that comics. I've used the image narrative as a style because I'm a cartoonist. That's I couldn't detract from my style as a cartoonist, and that's why we can consider that as a hybrid comics or hybrid narration, combined between all of these kind of style or methods. I've started my story from the first moment when they have arrested me in Allenby Bridge or Al Karama Bridge between Jordan and Palestine, because that's moment, it's something critical for me. It was very critical for me. I was the cartoonist who was traveling back from Amman. He had some work in Amman, and then he traveled back to Palestine to continue his life, to go back to his work. But unfortunately, that's event changed everything. From the first night, and my question, where am I, when I've asked a Palestinian prisoner where we are, what we are doing here, I don't know exactly. In some of these splash pages, actually I've tried to translate my inner emotion, not just convey, depicting what's happened there, because sometimes I've tried just to really to translate that. I couldn't depict the details inside the prison, but I can, and I wanted to depict my feeling, my emotion in that place. I've tried in some of my splash pages, some of my panels to use some referencing for some very famous photos or images or artwork, because I want the people to be familiar of when they look for these pages. I'm sorry, I will smoke. That will not arrive for you. I can't smoke in my office. And sometime I wanted to convey what exactly happened with me while I was talking with myself, how I met this therapy for me, just to because it was very hard time for me, wanted to use this kind of pages, designs to convey the life of Palestinian detainees or prisoner. Talk about our, not just my life inside the prison, about all the Palestinian life or all the Palestinian prisoner journey in their interrogation, their military courts, their what they call it, posta. I will show you that, and all these details, because all of the it's look like stations for the Palestinian prisoner. It's not just something easy. When you go to that prison, feel that it's look like play. It's not something real. It's they have all of these decoration. It's look like we are not in court. There's no justice there, and that's why I've done this kind of images in that prison. Talk about the posta when they transform when they make this transportation for the Palestinian prisoner from prison to prison, because that it's look like they are torturing the Palestinian prisoner. They are not just moving the Palestinian prisoner from prison to prison or from that court to the prison. They wanted to use this methods to torture the Palestinian prisoner, to use all of this kind of details for that. During all of that, I told you what's happened during the interrogation. The Israeli interrogator told me that if you are thinking that you will live with the heroes, you are live with the Palestinian heroes, you are not right. You are going to live with some criminals inside the prison. And then when I have met that bird, and I feed that bird and teach him how he can fly outside the prison. And you can imagine that the Palestinian prisoner, they are teaching the bird how they can fly outside the prison, and that's why that bird, you have promised me that okay, you are an illustrator, you are an artist, and because you have feeded me, you have taught me how I can fly outside the prison. I would go out around Palestine to bring some stories about the Palestinian prisoner, and you can illustrate all of these stories. And actually, all of these stories, they are real story. I've done interviews with some Palestinian people who they have faced all of this condition. Like this story, she's my friend. Her name is Manal, from small village here in West Bank, and he got married to a Palestinian from. And actually, these two couples, they are Christian. She's from Zimbabwe, he's from Jerusalem, and because they have to got married, they have to live in Kufr Aqab. It is a small area between Jerusalem and West Bank. And if you got married to any woman from Jerusalem, or woman or man from Jerusalem get married to a woman from West Bank, they have to live there. It's look like small camp without any organization or something like that you can find. It look like small camp. Another story from Gaza for one of my friends. His name Ndalou Hedi, and he's a journalist, and he's always talking about just the drone, the military drone in skies of Gaza, because it's caused a very, very noisy voice, and that's what he's always talking about, that drone. Another thing, it's a small article for one of my friends. His name is Ziad Khaddash, and he teaches in a school here in Ramallah. He was talking, or he wrote that article about one of his students who was killed by the Israeli soldier while he was going to have that school, and how this small kids became in like curriculum, like a book for the rest of the students. That's why I've tried to illustrate his comic, his article in my comics. Another story for one of my friends. His grandfather was expelled in 1948 to a camp in Beit Lahem. His father wanted to like build a building, or to purchase a small piece of land for his kids, and that's why he has purchased a small land around Bethlehem, and then the Israeli government has decided they want to build a settlement close to that piece of land. That's why they called his fatherland as a military zone, and that's why he could not build or use that land to build a building for his kids. That's why his look like became refugees again and again. The story of my brother daughter, she was born while he was in the prison, and it's very sad story. That's why I cannot just explain all the details of this story. Another story happened with me while I was a student in Al-Najah University during my bachelor degree. And that's all of these stories are real stories. Another story about the houses demolishing in Jerusalem, and all of these stories also, it was from some interviews. And this was actually, it was this, I got this story in accident while I was in a small village here around Ramallah called Birzeit. And one of my colleagues told me that, look at that old man, why he is sad. I told him why. I asked him why he's sad. He told me because his kids was killed while he was going to school, and the Israeli detained his son bodies. They did not give him his bodies to bury his body. That's why I thought that all the Palestinian people, they are in a prison. I was in the prison, still in the prison in Ramallah. The Palestinians in Jerusalem, they are in prison. In West Bank, they are in prison. In diaspora, they are in prison. It's looked like the indigenous people in the United States of America, they are in that reservations. And we are now in reservations, surrounded by these walls, these settlements, these checkpoints. They surrounded the Palestinian people, even in the West Bank, which considered in the international law as a Palestinian states, like prisons. It's not just the Palestinian prisoners, or in that Israeli prison, they are in prison. Even the Palestinian people in all of these cities, they are in prisons. The Palestinian people who they are in United States of America, who they could not come back to Palestine, who they could not travel to Palestine or visit Palestine, they are in prison. They cannot visit their historical home. And that's why I thought that all of these people, not just the Palestinian prisoner, they are in prison. All of these people, they are in prison, they are in reservation. They converted the Palestinian people to visitor in this land, to some people who they are look like, I don't know, we all look like museum. You can see the Palestinian people like all think like, I don't know. But that's why now I'm doing another project. I call this project as a Coos Gallery. It's look like I have used, this is not my book, this is something else. This website, I will publish maybe next month some artwork. Depends on some Palestinian photography or photographer who they have took some photography in West Bank, Palestine, in West Bank and Gaza and diaspora. You can see some of these artworks, and I've used this artwork in the street and published some of these artwork in the street. This artwork was published in, or I have hanged this artwork in Beta, where you can see the confiscation or this struggles between the Palestinian people and the Israeli soldiers and settlers, because this land, some settlers, Israeli settlers, want to confiscate this land and build Israeli settlement. We had this event, what's happened in Jalboua prison, when these 6 Palestinian prisoners were have escaped from the Israeli prison. That's why I wanted to make this kind of art, like graffiti in the streets. I wanted to make some artwork during this events. Another kind of artwork I've tried to do in Palestine. I don't think that I have finished. I have a lot of things to do. I don't know if I can accomplish all of these things or not. I hope so. Thank you.
Wow, Mohammed, thank you so, so much for that incredible presentation. And if folks want to put in the chat your reactions, and we'll save the chat as well, and also questions that you have for Mohammed as well. I mean, I noticed people writing in the chat, just how striking the images are as you were showing this to us. So I guess I'll start out conversation with questions and comments, and then we'll select some from the chat. But I guess, I come back to that question of, can there be an accurate depiction of an insane situation? And I just think about just the incredible nature of your work, in that you are depicting such brutality, such horrible situations in ways that are just so strikingly beautiful, right? And as I look at the images and take them in, I have this really strange experience of, knowing that what I'm looking at is extremely brutal and horrific, but then taking in just the wonder of the art, of the artistry, right? And to me, it kind of recreates the insanity, right, of the beauty and the horrible existing together. But I wonder, it's a really complicated reaction, and I just wondered if you could talk about like how what kinds of reactions you get from folks when you show the work, either through these Zoom or around the world when you could go, like what brings you joy in how people receive the work, what brings you hope, and what brings you despair in how people engage with your work, if you care to talk about that.
I don't know if my work changed the people or not. I cannot evaluate my experience. Maybe my audience can say that they can see or talk about their experience, or if my work changed their experience about Palestine or not, or their knowledge about my situation or not. I'm trying to do something. I will not claim that my work changed the people, but I hope so. I hope that my work changed exactly what's going on in or how they think about Palestine, how they think about the situation in Palestine, and that's why exactly I'm doing that. I'm trying to change something, to use my artwork as a tool to raise the awareness about the situation here in Palestine. I'm not sure that I have succeeded with that or not. This will be evaluation for my work and for my art projects. And I hope so. I hope so. That's my work is a good for that, or is a good tool for that. Maybe I have to ask the people about that, not me.
True.
And actually, I want just to mention something, that this artwork, this artwork from the prison, I have smuggled these two, the black and white, this artwork from the prison, and the middle one, this one, the colored one, outside the prison. I have done this one outside the prison. Just I wanted to mention that.
Is any of your work considered contraband by the Israeli authorities?
Actually, I've mentioned that one of my artwork, it was a long mural about the Palestinian history, was confiscated by the Israeli soldier. I've exhibited that. Actually, it was a copy, not the original one. The original one here in my home, but it was confiscated by the Israeli officer while I was traveling back from Belgium 2 years ago. And the reaction from the Israeli, actually, the pro-Israeli website, it's maybe evidence that my work changed something. I hope so. I don't know exactly if I have to change something, or I have to improve my image or my style sometime. But always I'm searching for something new, for something help me to convey my the story of my people clearly for all the people around the world.
Got it. Okay. Can you talk about, and you talked a little bit about this in the presentation, but I know that your first book of cartoons, the narrative was kind of in the cells themselves. And then with Power Born of Dreams, it reads more like a narrative, right? You're the character that goes across the whole book. The bird is a character that goes across the whole book. What was that like for you, moving from, into that mode of storytelling? Do you think you'll continue with the narrative, do a mix of both, go back to the single cell?
Actually, it was a great challenge for me. It wasn't easy to change my style and my way how I can. And I have to mention something. And here in Palestine, we don't have comics. Liz has came here, and maybe she has visited a lot of bookstores here. We don't have like this kind of, if we call it, industry here in Palestine. That's why maybe I was born in Kuwait. I moved to Jordan. I have this chance to travel around the world to meet some comics artists from around the world, like Seth Bookman, Joe Sacco, Ethan, and all of these, Peter Cooper, and all of these artists, who they are great artists in this kind of art, the comics. But it wasn't easy for me to convert or to change my style from the silent image, or if we can call it image narrative, into this kind of image with narration, with story, to build this, or to make this construction not just for the images and also for the narration, the events, how I can order all of these things in together and combine all of these things into one book. It wasn't easy for me, but I think most of the people around the world, they want information, not just they want beautiful art or beautiful image. And that's why I faced this kind of challenge, and I wanted to create this comics. I had this, I want to thank Liz for that. I have this opportunity, or this conversation with Liz in Ramallah, when she asked me, why you don't make a comics about Palestine? And that was, okay, why not? Okay, it's a challenge for me. It's not something easy, but I can do that. I can face this kind of challenge. Like a Palestinian, I want to mention one thing. During my master's degree in the UK, my tutor, my professor in the UK, when he has asked me what exactly you want to make your thesis, what your project, I told him that I want to make comics story using the relief printing, or the printmaking technique. She has asked me, it's very difficult for you during this lockdown to print like all of this number of pages to create a comics book. And that's actually provoked another challenge for me. I told him, okay, I came to the UK to get master's degree, to learn from, to be learned by you, or by all of these professors in this university. But also I want to teach you how you can deal with the Palestinian people, how you can, you should deal with the Palestinian artists. I will challenge all of these things. I did my artwork inside the Israeli prison. I can do this challenge also inside this lockdown, and I will face this challenge, and I will do my project. And that's what exactly I've done. Some of these pages, actually, I've used some pieces of wood from the streets. I've recycled all of these pages from the UK during the lockdown to do all of these pages. Not all of these pages I've used the linoleum, or the material that I have to use to do this kind of art. But it was look like a challenge for me. And I don't know, maybe we are, as a Palestinian, we cannot live without challenges.
It's become a blueprint. I mean, I would imagine that if you're able to create art in an Israeli prison, Corona is just child's play.
It's like joke for us.
Yeah. And I also love that you're like working in lino cuts now with that book. My academic self starts thinking about how you're literally showing what is not there, which obviously has lots of textured meaning for the Palestinian experience. Okay, I've got a question from Jill, who says, first, the power of your work is formidable and the energy comes through so intensely. Can you talk about the use of black and white? Do you use color at times? Obviously you might have some technical limitations, but I think, also getting at just the thematic. And is that because of the limitations of linotype? Yeah.
Actually, the limitation of the linoleum cut one of these reasons, but also my first book was black and white. I will go back to that challenge when I was released from the prison, and I had this chance to travel around the world and have seen a lot of artists. I have met An Altness, the Washington Post cartoonist, Kevin Cal, the economist cartoonist, and he lives in DC, Matt Walker, and all of these artists. And most of these artists and mainstream artists around the world, they use the traditional way to create the art without the digital way, without all of this technology. And that's why I was thinking, why I don't go back to use the same style without technology, without color, without anything, because our life here in Palestine look like black and white. The occupation is, if we want to judge the occupation, it's look like black and white. We cannot judge our situation here in Palestine as a gray area. You cannot stand between the Palestinian right and the Israeli narrative. You have to choose between the black and white. I don't mean here that the black is the bad thing and the white is the good thing, but it's look like it's black and white without gray area, and that's why I've chosen most of my artwork outside for these books, my first book and my second book, to use the black and white, because if you want to judge or the stand or to have a position about the situation in Palestine, you have to choose between the black and white.
So interesting. We have a question about, how your work maybe helped to move through trauma. And it's interesting. I just saw a documentary about Sinead O'Connor last night, Nothing Compares. And she makes this striking, she just said something that really stuck with me about how y'all are fans of Sinead O'Connor from her first album. She's got this incredibly cathartic song called Troy. And as an older person, she now talks about, she's like, I don't ever perform that song anymore, because if that song actually succeeded in doing what I wanted it to do, I don't need to sing it anymore. So she doesn't perform that live anymore. Now, obviously, your artwork is very different. There's a continuing crisis, right, that needs to keep being represented. It's not like you're going to move through it tomorrow, and then it's not like there's going to be no need for your work. But is there something like, are you hoping to? Well, I guess I'll just leave it. Are you able? How does it help you work through trauma? And what do you see the trajectory of the work being?
Actually, not just drawing my artwork. It's a method to go over all of this trauma and all of this situation. Also, I've used the art as a tool to go over all of this situation, to use the artwork to express themselves, and to use the artwork as, if we can call it as a tool or as a method, to go over all of this situation. And also, it was a tool for myself inside the Israeli prison, to go over all of this situation inside the Israeli prison, to use the artwork as a method to challenge the solitary confinement inside the prison as a tool of torturing the Palestinian prisoners. And that's why also I think maybe we can do some coloring book for the kids to also be used as for the same reason. It's not just my book and for myself. It's for the Palestinian people, for the Palestinian kids, for the Palestinian audience also. And that's why also I'm teaching in Palestinian University here, the art school, American University teacher at that university, And that's why I got my master degree. I hope I can get my PhD also. But now I got that master degree and I'm teaching the student, and it's a good way for my student also, just also of these things.
Okay, fantastic. I just brought up the short video that we have of you making the work, and I was gauging from questions and past webinars that we've done, people are actually really interested in the process. And so I think I'll go ahead and show that. It's less than under 3 minutes. So everyone, I'm going to share my screen and we'll see that video. But to make this work best, so we don't tax the system too much, if while the video's playing, you could uncamera yourself, that will make it much easier for our connection. All right, and we'll start that in a second here. Thank you, Liz, for sending this. Okay. Okay, folks. I'm like, the screen pops up. You can see what all my video interests are. Okay, that was really so interesting. Mohammed, how easy is it for an artist to, have, you mentioned using the wood from rubbish, which I, great environmental, but I'm wondering, how easy is it for artists in occupied Palestine to have the materials that they need to create work, and what is the best way that people can actually materially support Palestinian artists?
actually, I want to mention something, not just Palestine. Most of the artists around the world will have enough to do their artworks, do that inside Palestine. We have chemical material. It had to be approved from the Israel to be used. Like in that we cannot do in some chemical materials, or I don't know exactly what they call it. But here in Palestine, we can do that. We don't have like stores for you can imagine that what
Looks like we lost Mohammed for a second, and imagine he'll be signing off and signing back on again in a second. And once again, reminder, folks, if you have questions, drop them in the chat. And we'll stay on for another 5 to 10 minutes, and then we're going to raffle off one of Mohammed's books. You know what? While we're waiting for Mohammed to come back.
Oh, he's back. He's back.
Okay.
I came back. Yeah.
Glad to have you back.
Sorry for that. Not just here in Palestine. I think most of the artists around the world they cannot use the art supplement because it's very expensive. Not just the Palestinian artists, but especially here in Palestine, some kind of art, the workshops, like library for the artists. We don't have all of these things. I'm not good representative for the Palestinian artists because I used whatever I have to create art. And I think most of the artists around the world, they have the same problem, not just the Palestinian artists. We have this challenge because of the occupation. We have this challenge that all of the other artists around the world, because the resources and the materials very expensive. We have to challenge all of these conditions, not just me as a Palestinian inside Palestine, but as an artist, I have all of these challenges.
Understood. Okay. Mohammed, do you feel vulnerable to another arrest by the Israeli military?
If I answer this question, I will pretend that I'm a hero. I'm not a hero. All the Palestinian people, they have this chance to go back to the Israeli prison. My brother, he has spent more than 10 years in the Israeli prison. I have friends in the Israeli prison that they have spent more than 20 years in the Israeli prison. And also as a Palestinian, not just an artist, I have this chance to go back to the Israeli prison. I don't think it's specific for the Mohammad Sabaaneh. It's for all the Palestinian people. Okay.
People actually are interested in supporting you directly. Do you have a Cash App? Are there ways that people, aside from just buying the books, that folks can materially support your work?
Actually, for my financial situation, I work as a cartoonist. I work as a teacher in university in the Arab American University. I don't need actually financially support. You can support the Palestinian people using maybe buy some artworks from Palestinian people, buy my book. You can support the Palestinian people. For me, as in my personal level, I work hard to support my family and my art and all of these things. Thank for all the people who they want to support me, but this is not my main problem. If you support the Palestinian people, support their rights, support the Palestinian prisoners, for me, that's enough.
Yeah, I think they meant supporting, specific works of art directly, but point well taken, point well taken. Actually, yeah, is there, is there a way to buy some of your art outside of the books? I'm actually wondering, are you in the crypto world? Are you going to be making some NFTs of your comics? I think that'll be an amazing thing to do.
Actually, I will launch this site. It's for brands that I have mentioned in my. It is for brands for some new brands. I will launch this website. I will send this website. Still, I haven't launched this website, but you can visit this website soon. It will be launched by some of my friends for some of my brands. You can visit this website and you can see some of my artworks.
Okay, that's super great. We've got some links in the chat that show us how to connect with that. All right, well, I think maybe we'll take one more question. And Lauren, do you want to get ready with the raffle? This is so exciting, Mohammad. It's like dramatic, intense raffle that we do. Let me just scan our chat. People are saying, I'll just read some of the comments. Eve says she so appreciates your honesty, or Eve says, so appreciate your honesty, your humility, and your description of your situation as a Palestinian and an artist. Liz is letting us know that if the pandemic allows, we may be able to, Mohammad might be able to come to the US for a book tour, which you will absolutely need to come to Boston. If you do that, we will make that happen.
I hope so. I have applied for American visa and I'm waiting. I hope that they will give me that visa. With Corona restriction, I'm not sure that they give the visa for all the people. I had a lot of problems because the American consulate in Jerusalem, and as a Palestinian prisoner or foreigner prisoner, I have to get permission to go to Jerusalem. That's why I've asked some friends in the American consulate in Jerusalem to give me, or they call it now embassy. I cannot call it embassy. It's a consulate for me as a Palestinian, but I've applied for that visa. I hope that I can get that visa and come back to United States of America. And to be honest with you, I like United States of America and I like the people there.
It'll be amazing to see you. I was actually fortunate enough to get to meet you in Tacoma when you were there before the pandemic, and it was just an incredible evening, incredible presentation. Would love to see you again.
Thank you. Thank you.
Elegant and passionate work. We like you too, Mohammad.
Thank you. Thank you, Liz. Thank you.
Great. All right. So when Lauren's ready, we'll turn her screen over.
I'm ready. Mocha, I think you need to make me a co-host so I can share my screen.
I did.
Oh, you did? Okay, my bad. Let's.
And so I do not forget afterwards. I just want to reiterate our thanks and gratitude for you, Mohammad, for being here with us. And thank you so much, Liz, for making this happen. We just love partnering with you and really appreciate the wonderful things you sent us. And we'll be making great use of them.
That's great.
Yeah.
Thank you, Liz, for everything.
Yeah, Street Noise Books, everyone.
I want to mention something that Liz, she is a great woman. That's what she has done is great efforts, and I want to thank her for that.
Thank you so much, Mohammad. I unmuted myself for a second just to tell you. It's such an honor to be your publisher.
Thank you, Liz.
I think our Zoom is set up so that Lauren is not able to share. That's strange because when we do our membership meetings, we're able to do that. I'll ask Jill if she has any expertise, and if we can't figure it out, everyone will have to trust us to do our own.
I can still run a private raffle. It's basically a wheel you click and spin. And if you trust me, I will promise to deliver only the results yielded from the spinny thing.
I
Right.
trust you. Wait, can we
Vote
show
of
a show of
confidence?
hands?
Okay.
If we trust Lauren?
Thanks, guys. Okay, I'll be just a moment while I run this invisible raffle.
Looking for a participant.
What a shame. It's so fun to watch.
It is.
But Lauren is so trustworthy.
Well,
Her mom will attest to that.
as long as her mother doesn't win, then we'll
All
know.
right, everyone. I'm pleased to announce that Eve is the winner. If she is still on the call,
Eve,
Uh,
can you
Eve,
unmute and accept your award?
yes, please step
I
forward. to claim
can
the prize.
unmute. I feel so incredibly lucky to be the winner, but even more fortunate to have been able to watch this webinar with Mohammad, who clearly is just an incredible artist and a wonderful human being. So thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you. Eve.
Thank
That
you.
could not have, that could not
I
have
don't
done
think
better.
I don't think that I'm a wonderful cartoonist or an artist. I'm just someone who trying to do what exactly he should do.
That's fabulous.
Yeah, and doing it incredibly well.
100%. All right, everyone, I want to thank you all for being here, for joining JVP Boston. All sorts of ways that you can connect with us. We've got a website, we're on Facebook, we're on Instagram, we're on TikTok, we're everywhere. So just Google us and you can find us. And Mohammad, thanks so much again for joining us, and can't wait to further collaborate and amplify your work and your message as best we can, as much as we can. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for organizing that. Thank you.
Have a great day, everybody.
You too.